things are difficult, but then if you have a passion towards it, it's going to be easy. And for me, like programming was something that I found joy in doing it. And I was talking to my dad. I remember telling my dad, hey, I really want to switch careers because I'm not really liking optometry. And my dad said, okay, I think you should just move back home, work part-time, focus on like this new kind of career you want to get into, and then figure it out from there. I know that advice doesn't work most of the time, but for me it worked. So I was just being my authentic self, following my passion, and that's how I got into programming and web development.
It takes a number of years for someone to sort of foster their passion and interest and figure out what they really want to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to figure out what you want when you're young, right? Like, you can always take time and figure out what you want, then go back into it.
Hope and being positive is something you have to protect. In the world that we live in, if you don't protect it, it's just going to be taken away from you, sucked away from you. And that's where, if you become hopeless, it's like almost the end. And I do see it with some people. Like, people message me because they've known I switched careers. Like, they want to switch careers too, and they feel like they just can't because it's too late, or the thing they want to pursue may not be as lucrative. So specialists are someone who kind of specializes in one area versus generalists are people who kind of look at multiple fields and combine them together. And I think it's more valuable in the long run, as like you said, artificial intelligence is sort of better at specializing versus if you're general, like if you combine multiple interests together, you're kind of more of a weapon.
Would you have told your 19-year-old self to go for something more in the computer science field or something like that rather than in healthcare? Alright, so Siobhan, you left the field of optometry, so if you could just start off this second section by telling us a bit about what career you're in right now, because, well, you mentioned a bit at the start, but, let's go into that a bit more detail if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'm really excited to actually talk about this part. So I think it'd be important to talk about where I was at the time. So I obviously graduated university. I've been working for about 6 years, and I got a bit disillusioned with the career of optometry. And that's just me. I'm not saying it's a bad career. It's just, for me personally, I got disillusioned with the career. So I was looking at different options, and something I stumbled upon was programming, so learning how to code. And essentially, I learned how to code. I was learning for about, coming to the third year since I started learning programming properly. So I started learning programming in high school, just for fun, programming a calculator. I tried learning when I was a little bit outside my career, but I never was really focused on it. But I really got into programming to a point where I was living in Christchurch, working full time, and I was talking to my dad. I remember telling my dad, hey, I really want to switch careers because I'm not really liking optometry. And my dad said, okay, I think you should just move back home, work part-time, focus on this new kind of career you want to get into, and then figure it out from there. So to answer your question, what I'm doing now is I'm working as a web developer or programmer. So I use programming. So I've been doing that for almost a year now. And the company I work for, it's based in Adelaide. It's called iSpace. And what we do is we have a software that will take a map of the eye, and we're able to build a custom contact lens from that. And I work on the the tech side of things. So we've got for example, we've got an online cloud system, and I've been working on that. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. So still kind of in the eye health space, but more I'm not doing any clinical work. My optometry knowledge doesn't get used that much. Mainly just doing programming now, and software development and web development.
Yeah, more the technology side of things, right?
That's correct. Yep, that's correct.
You mentioned programming and learning how to code. I've always thought that coding takes a long time to learn, and I mean it's a really good skill to have, especially now that we're moving towards sort of AI and internet business age.
Yep.
Was it difficult? Was it your interest, and did you or did you learn how to code just for the commercial side of things?
Yeah, that's the thing, Harry. Things are difficult, but then if you have a passion towards it, it's going to be easy. And for me, programming was something that I found joy in doing it. I'm not the best programmer in the world. I never got a degree or did anything like that. All I did was just work on, I had a book called, I've got it here actually. This is the first book. I'll just show it on camera.
Yep.
This is the first book. It's called Automate the Boring Stuff. You can see it as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So I remember purchasing this book, and Yeah, so I basically learned Python, and the really key thing was to do the problems. And I remember I did my first ever problem, and I was like so excited to get it working. I don't remember what it was, but I just remember being really excited to get it. It was that whole process of like having a problem, sitting in front of your keyboard and solving it. I really got into Python. Then I kind of swung towards, like, I wasn't interested in data science and like numbers, but what really got me going was being able to write some code and change something on a website. That really got me, like, that really blew my mind, because that website could be used by heaps of people. It could be seen anywhere. You could show it off to lots of people. So that kind of feedback loop really got me hooked. And then I was thinking, hey, there's people who actually do this for like there's actually something you could do for a job, which I didn't know back in the day, right? I didn't know programming was a job. Like when I was in high school, playing around with my calculator to program, because those graphics calculators where you can program it to do something. Like I made this shooting game on my calculator. I didn't know you could write code to make money. I just made some projects, hosted them on what's called GitHub. So GitHub's a place where you can host your code. You can also, because I was doing web development, you could basically build websites and just have links, show people what these links. And eventually I was posting a lot on LinkedIn about my career, like not enjoying optometry, but really enjoying programming. And then someone saw some of my posts, and he recommended me interview with my now kind of manager. So I had the interview. That's how the job came about. And yeah, so
nice.
For me, this is more in harmony with my soul and spirit, because optometry is more like I just stumbled across it because I didn't get into medicine. This kind of, I just followed my passion, and like it came to me. So it's kind of like I know it's very lucky, and I'm not sure like my recommendation is just follow what you're really interested in. I know that advice doesn't work most of the time, but for me it worked. So I was just being my authentic self, following my passion, and that's how I got into programming.
Nice.
And web development.
Yeah. So if you are to take yourself back to 10, 15 years ago, would you have told yourself 10, 15 years ago, your 19-year-old self, to go for something more in the computer science field or something like that rather than in healthcare?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I wouldn't known any better at the time. So I'm like, I don't think in regrets, man. But
of course,
certainly I do think back to that time I could have done something else. Like I didn't even have to go to university to get like a job. Like that's kind of, you just have to be passionate and focused and willing to like learn every day and challenge yourself and put yourself out there. Those are the kind of the key traits that I didn't know at the time. I thought you just had to go to lectures and get a degree and then get a job. So
I mean,
I was doing something like engineering.
That's one way to do it, right?
Yeah, it's one way to do it, I think, and it gives you your foot in the career. I'm specialized, right? Like I can do optometry as well as programming. It's kind of cool to combine two things together. There's a book. It's called. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's by David Epstein. It's about generalists versus specialists. So specialist is someone who kind of specializes in one area versus generalists are people who kind of look at multiple fields and combine them together. And I think that's more valuable in the long run, as like you said, with artificial intelligence, it's sort of better at specializing versus if you're general, like if you combine multiple interests together, you're kind of more of a weapon in a way. So yeah, to answer your question, going back, I wouldn't change anything, even though I kind of think, I didn't have to go to university to get the job. It kind of led up to where I am today. Plus, I think having optometry was good because I was working with people. And when I was in high school, that's what I struggled with the most was like people skills. So I was happy that I had that people skills in the beginning. And now I'm working in a career where I'm basically working by myself. And like it's really important, like in optometry, helped me focus on relationships and connections, having those people skills, which is definitely what you need as a programmer, because we think that programmers are all people who like have no people skills, but like we build tools for people to use. And especially working as an optometrist where I work currently, I think having that understanding of what optometry is really useful for the products that we build.
Yeah, very interesting.
Sorry to ramble.
Insight. No, very interesting insight. I feel like sometimes your story can kind of resonate with a lot of people in a way that it takes a number of years for someone to sort of foster their passion and interest and figure out what they really want to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to figure out what you want when you're young, right? Like you can always take time and figure out what you want, then go back into it.
I think it's always possible to figure out what you want. Yeah,
it's always a good life experience, right? Like you've done optometry, but it's not a waste of time or anything. Like it's still I'm sure it's still been a good life experience and a good time.
Yeah, like when I graduated, I was pretty happy because it was like me, like earning money for the first time, like proper money, So it's kind of I think
Yeah.
who I was 10 years ago is like a completely different person to who I am today. I don't know if you attest to the same thing, right? Like we change as people. So what we want changes. We have different chapters of our life. So right now what I do is really important to me. That might not be the case in 15 years.
Definitely. Yeah. Sometimes just take it one step at a time would be good.
Exactly. And if you think day to day, you might hate the day today, but it could always be better in the future. Things could change. And I think the advice to myself back then is like, do something, and then just realize like you're not stuck. You can always change the situation. The worst thing is to just give up. That's like give up hope. And I think in the world we live in, Harry, this is starting to get very philosophical and airy-fairy. Like I know I'm very lucky to get the situation I'm in, but I think hope and being positive is something you have to protect. In the world that we live in, if you don't protect it, it's just going to be taken away from you. It'll be sucked away from you. And that's where, if you become hopeless, it's like almost the end. And I do see it with some people. Like people message me because they've known I switch careers. Like they want to switch careers too, and they feel like they just can't because it's too late, or the thing they want to pursue may not be as lucrative. Because that's another thing too, Harry. Like I'm very lucky with tech. I guess it's changing now, but tech is quite lucrative in terms of money. And I'm lucky to go into that sort of field. For example, let's say if you're interested in music or you want to be an actor, they're really hard fields to get into, right? So like that's where like giving the advice, follow your passion is not like the best kind of advice, because what you could be getting into may not be as lucrative as what you're doing currently. So it's always like we're all different people. What's more important to you? Is it really important that you wake up every day excited, or is it really important that you can pay your bills and feed your family?
Definitely. When it comes to switching careers, I feel like most people, well, maybe not most people, but some people, they've got this. Have you heard of this thing called like sunken cost fallacy or something? It's like you've invested 5, 8, 10 years into a career, and you feel like giving it up in pursuit of something that can be potentially more beneficial
in the long run.
They just can't give that up. I feel like it's more it's a lot of that mentality.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. No, Harry, that's actually another thing. Yeah, that's really great. The sunk cost fallacy is actually perfectly describes like the situation that I felt in sometimes. Like when I was talking to my dad saying, hey, just come home, like just live with us. We'll be a security blanket while you're trying to figure out something new. That was like going backwards for me. I built up this career. I've moved out of home. I'm fine. Like, why go backwards? And I think it involves a lot of ego. So another thing, like a hobby I've sort of picked up is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You probably know about grappling. And it talks about the ego, wanting to look good in front of others instead of learning. And I think starting something new takes a lot of humility. And sucking at something, it takes a lot of humility. Like, I sucked my new career, like of optometry, I was good at it. I was getting job offers, even in my current career, but it wasn't for me. Like if I did this career for 10 years, I'll be unhappy, so it wasn't really worth it. And that kind of was a big enough tipping point for me to say, hey, I think it's okay. I'll just go backwards. It's fine. Like I know people, it's hard too, Harry, because when you're at that point, everyone's like buying houses, starting a family, and you're kind of starting from scratch again. So yeah, it's difficult, but it's going to be better in the long run. Like I said, the sunk cost fallacy. You put so many years, effort into like this one pathway, you just want to keep pursuing it, but in the long run, it's going to lead to more misery. Versus, drop your ego, take a step back. It's okay to start again, and then because at that point in time, you're the oldest you'll ever be, right? So you think you're quite old in a way. Like a lot of people don't realize that they're young in a sense. Then they look back. Like, because when I was 19, I thought, oh my God, I had to have all my like ducks in a row. I had to have everything sorted out. But then looking back then, I was so young and naive. I could have just changed like anything. So and it's really hard to think about at the time. It's like relationships too. Like people are just with they're dating someone that they don't really want to be with, but they've been with them for so long. Like, what's the point? I can't start again. It's tough to bite that bullet.
Definitely. A bit about your optometry career. How come you did mention that you were working part-time, right? And how come you choose not to keep doing that part-time? Or is it just because you feel like programming and web development is more of a passion for you, so that's why you decided to leave optometry for good?
When I came back to live with my parents, work part-time, I was basically learning programming. Then I had like a little small contracting gig. So I was basically just building a prototype for someone so they could get more funding and market it. It never worked out in the end, but I had a small contracting gig. So I was kind of doing maybe full time in that aspect. But now I'm working full time for this new company. My new job, my proper job actually, proper web development job, I call it. So I'm working full time. There's just no like room or space to do optometry part time. So so I come back. So when I was working part time, I had this contracting gig on the side, which was equivalent, pretty much full time. And then now this new job is basically taking up all my time. And I think it's an evolution of myself. Like it's hard to keep up two things at the same time. I really want to get better as a programmer, as a web developer. And then before I got into career, I thought it was quite simple. There's more to it. So I really want to progress in this career. And it's just too hard to have two things at a time. My initial plan was to work full-time Monday to Friday, do web development / programming. And then in the weekends do optometry locum. But then I thought in the weekend, I'll just have a break, try something new, do other things. Like there's no point just doing optometry for the sake of like having it, like more money wouldn't make me any happier. And like doing this like career, like just to keep up the points wasn't really worth it. It was just too much overhead. So I thought I'll move on. And I think like another question, which you'll probably ask me is, would I ever go back to optometry?
Exactly. That was my next question.
Yeah. So and as an optometrist, you have to have an annual practicing certificate. So every year you have to renew your certificate. Usually your workplace pays for it, or if you're locuming, you're kind of a sole practitioner, sole proprietor, or you're a business basically. Your own business pays for it. I had to pay for that out of pocket. So I paid for my first annual practicing certificate for 1 year. I never used it. That's about almost $1,000, but you have to renew that once a year. Plus, you got to renew your professional indemnity insurance, a PI insurance, and you got to pay for that yourself. And I didn't have a locum business set up or anything, and I couldn't be bothered, to be honest, because I was so like, I really like my new career. So I've sort of given up my annual practicing certificate. So I've downgraded down to like non-practicing, like without CPD. So CPD is another thing. CPD is continuing professional development. So that's basically, you got to do so many points to keep your, every 2 years to keep your kind of skills up. That's where you go to conferences and do online exams. And I couldn't be bothered doing that. Like, I couldn't be bothered doing it. So I thought I'll shelve that career and going back, because I feel
Sure.
like I in your life, you should be making steps forward. Because I'm in a new career, it's not as risky as starting a business. So when you start a business and it fails, you need a fallback, right? That's like a career. With tech, I don't see the career disappearing, despite what you see on like AI and stuff. Like there's always more I could do within this career, right? I could become like a product manager. I could start a startup. I could become a manager, or there's so many more things that I could be doing. So I could be moving on to the next stage of my career, the next thing of my career, rather than going back. So that's kind of why I've moved on, and I'm not going to go back to optometry. I feel like if I move back, it's like me taking a step back.
More like a next thing in your life.
Next thing in your life, yeah. Like I feel like I can just keep moving on. I'm confident, since it's career change, I'm confident in myself that I can move on to something new. I don't need to have that fallback. And when I had that fallback, it was me just being a bit, like we talked about, ego, dropping yourself back. This is more like a security blanket, having that career. Like I'm not confident in myself to move on to the next thing. I should just, and then really commit to it. So then I could be a really great programmer.
Yeah.
Or web developer. Yeah.
We're nearing the end now. So how would you recommend teenagers, 17, 18, 19-year-olds thinking about careers? Just because, I always find that interesting when I'm sort of in between you and those people.
Yeah.
Well, 5 years ago, myself and sort of you, I'm sort of in that in-between stage. And I always find it interesting to see. Yeah. So how would you recommend teenagers thinking about careers?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Like you need to find out who you are as a person, like what you like. And that's really tough, like at the ages of 18, 17. Like I don't want to sound, what's the word? What's that word? It starts with P. When you look down on someone, what's that word?
What?
Anyway, it'll come to you. But like, I don't want to sound like someone I know everything, because I'm definitely like still learning. But like 17, 18, it's like really, if I would talk to myself at that age, it's like just knowing who you are and what you want to, like why you do things. So a lot of reasons like people pick a career is they want to impress their parents, they want to impress other people. And that's where like if you're going to be impressing others, you're going to lose. Like you should really be impressing yourself. that's really hard to say because, like I said, coming back to that, if you want to be a musician or an actor, these are really difficult careers to get into, right? Or there might be a career that doesn't even really exist, but that's something you're really passionate about and want to do. And it's about like finding out who you are. Like, does your career really, is your career and what you do really important to you? Or are you okay just to do something, and then outside your life is more fulfilling, like family, hobbies, friends, and your career is just a source of income to support those things. It's about finding out who you are. And it's tough to do at that particular age. Like, I know there's some people at that age who are very mature and know what they want, and some people like myself who wasn't that mature and didn't know. And then no matter what path you choose, just know that whatever path you choose is never the wrong path. Okay, just go into life thinking that the path that you choose is the right path, and then if you're not happy with it, you can always change it in the future.
Even if it is like wrong, you always learn lessons out of it anyway. Like you always learn that
exactly
maybe
right.
3-4 years down the line you'll be like, okay, I don't actually like this much, and there's some over those 3 years I'm not enjoying this too much, but I've learned that I enjoy making videos online, or I've enjoyed coding, or that there's always opportunities for you to self-discover, right? Like,
yeah, I think experimentation is key, right? You've got to try different things and like always be willing to learn. There's some great books. There's a book called A Millionaire's Fast Lane by MJ DeMarco. It's a book basically about entrepreneurship, but one line that really got me thinking was a lot of people when they finish university or they finish high school, like they stop learning. That's it. Like they focus on work and then they don't really want to get better internally, like learn new things. But life is a journey where you learn forever. Like you're always constantly learning and getting better and trying new things. So this morning, I think I was talking to you this morning before the podcast about how I'm learning how to fly, and I got my first solo like this morning. So that's basically you can fly the plane. So without an instructor, you just do a circuit. So you take off, fly downwind, and you land the plane. And then afterwards, my instructor, like, because he basically just goes back into the room and watches you from above. And he said to me, "Good job, like with the solo. It's a big milestone, but just remember, you're always like this is not it. You always have to keep learning, trying to get better. Small improvements every single time you fly. That's with life, right? Every day you should be kind of trying to challenge yourself, learn something new every day, and coming back to if you're on the wrong pathway when you picked your career. Let's say I'm not happy with this particular job. Try and gouge some time, like." If you're not happy, you will find a way. You will find something, a piece of time in your day to learn something new. It's so common with so many people. Like a lot of people aren't happy with their careers, and they do change. A lot of people change careers. A lot of people just find other parts of their life to bring them joy and happiness. So
definitely, yeah. Like even just half an hour a day. I'm sure most people who's got a full-time or more than full-time job can squeeze out half an hour a day, right? Half an hour a day for 6 days a week. That's 3 hours a week. Like you can easily learn some new skill or start some new business or something on the side, right?
Absolutely, Harry. Like what have you been doing? So you're obviously being a full-time med student is tough.
Well, I took this year off actually. I did 2 weeks of year 5 and I decided to apply for an interruption. Just because it's not because I'm not enjoying medicine, I enjoy it very much, but I've got some health problems, I've got some autoimmune problems, and it hasn't really been managed well for the past couple of months. So I just thought to put my physical health at the number one, just because,
nice.
Without health, you're nothing, right? But my plan this year is just, I've got this YouTube channel, I've got a small podcast growing, and it's small, but I'm making a little bit of money from it. But you have to start somewhere, Nice. So my plan is to kind of grow this, see where it takes me. I've got a few medical conferences overseas, so I'm gonna attend those and travel a bit, learn about myself. Yeah, hopefully make the most out of this year. And if there's any Chinese audiences out there, it's actually Chinese New Year, and it's the year of the dragon, and it's actually my year. I'm a dragon. So
awesome, man.
It means something to me. 2024. Last question before we finish off the podcast. Where do you see yourself in? The original question was, where do you see yourself in 10 years? But I'm going to ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years? Because through our conversation, I feel like even in the 5 years, you've changed a lot. So,
yeah, exactly right. Like it's hard to
fire off.
Yeah, it's hard to predict that, right? Like, because I think if you were to ask me that when I graduated, I wouldn't have given an answer. Long-term goals, I'd say 5 year, 10 year, probably long-term goals. I hope to be working at the same company that I am at. I hate the idea of people switching jobs just to get a higher pay salary. I hate that kind of, I really want to stay at this career for a long time, build my skills. And we've got some really exciting projects for my work that I'm working at. We've got some really exciting projects that I want to see to the very end and build out. So 10 years, hopefully just be a better programmer. I don't really think about the senior, junior kind of mentality. I hate that mentality. People like call themselves seniors because I think we should be learning every single day. For kickboxing or martial arts, like you're always a white belt, like you're always learning. Like the belts don't matter. I think about the same with my careers. Every single day, I just hope to be 10 years, being better than I was back at that time. 10 years, just continuing learning, being better. Things I definitely want to start up are maybe something within my work, like being able to produce content within our workspace, like a technical blog, or being able to what's known as open source projects. So that's basically where you build a project, people can contribute, like basically it's all public, people can see it, people can contribute to it, but it's what our work kind of sponsors. Those are like our long-term goals. It's a bit of an interesting one. A lot of people probably won't know what that means, but the idea is like I want to work on those sorts of projects, 5 years, 10 years, the same business, and like our business has grown, like our company has grown. It's kind of like where I'd see myself 5-10 years. That's work career wise. I wouldn't know how. I'm not really thinking about maybe a family by then. Who knows, family by then, and things change. We'll see.
Would you be thinking about getting into like a management role or something like that?
Yeah, so the team I'm working at is quite small at the moment. Maybe we might build that team up to be a lot bigger. I like to mentor people as well, like particularly people who are maybe switching careers as well. Like that's outside work. Like I definitely want to create content around that. Like like the journey of being a programmer too, because it's really hard, like starting out from scratch again. I definitely want to like produce content in that sort of realm. Talk about my life authentically, I guess, and people can hopefully find benefit from that. So that's things I want to do, which I'm sort of doing right now. The goal is to perhaps manage, but like you lead a project, maybe like you lead a project, you have people working with you, and like you can sort of build them up as well, build them up into, you can sort of mentor them and make them better. So kind of like what my manager does now. So he's basically the tech lead, and he'll educate us and give us advice and make us better programmers. So that's kind of like what I want to do within my work as well as outside work, produce content on career switching and the journey from being a beginner programmer to someone who's just improving every single day.
Awesome. That's some very good inspirational long-term goals from you, long-term goals that brings us to the end of the podcast. So
they always change.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Siobhan. Cool. And I'm sure there's lots of you watching who enjoyed these 2 episodes. And
okay, can I say something, Harry? Can I say something before you do the outro?
Yeah, of course. Say something.
Yeah, sorry about that, Harry. Yeah, I just want to say I had a really great time on this podcast, and you've been a great host. So yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. I've had so much fun just talking about myself and hopefully, I just hope this helps at least one person out there.
I'm sure it will.
And they can always get in touch with me too. So you'll leave plugs, right? So
of course.
If they need to get in touch, they can.
Yep.
So
I'll leave your email and social media, Instagram in the description below, and I'll also put your YouTube channel on the end screen page as well, so everyone can see it. And if any one of you watching, if you've got any ideas of what topics that you want me to talk about, be sure to drop a comment below and let me know. And don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. And otherwise, stay fit, stay strong, stay positive, and I'll see you in the next one. Cool.
Cheers.
Awesome. Cheers. That was really good. Man. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.